All right, welcome aboard. It's Tuesday night. It's CI Acceleration. Welcome aboard. I'm joined by Jenny and Stephanie tonight. Welcome aboard, ladies. Thanks for
Hi.
joining me.
Thanks for having us, Craig.
Hi.
Good stuff. Let me go ahead and get the screens shared. Let's go to this. Let's hope this works.
Steph, who's your furry friend tonight?
Oh,
Yeah,
you
guys,
mean
talking again. I don't
Zoe?
know what's going on. Hold on. Something happened again.
Hi, Zoe. Are you going to say hi? Making her big debut? Oh my gosh. So where
So
are
anyway,
you
yeah, where are you guys located tonight? While I
joining
get
us?
this thing figured out, you guys have at it. All right, give me 1 second here. I don't know what's going on with these screens.
Okay. I'm coming in from Southern California tonight. So Venice Beach, California. What about you, Jenny?
Love it. I'm actually in Salt Lake City, Utah tonight. I am changing out tenants for one of my long-term rental properties. So we're doing a quick transition, making sure the cleaning folks show up and new tenants move in. So that's my next couple days.
Awesome. I'm up here in beautiful Wesley Chapel, Florida. The weather's been really nice. I'm super excited to be here. And I think that we're all set now. So you should be able to see my very first slide. Is that correct, everybody? Yes? Yes?
It looks
Yes.
Awesome.
like it. Yep.
Beautiful. All right. So if you've got a question, please feel free to post it into the questions area. And what I'd like to do is just welcome you all aboard and let us know where you're from. You could be anywhere tonight. You've chosen to be with us, and we truly appreciate that. So just let us know where you're from. So where you're from, but also there's a lot of folks that have been invited that probably don't have PIN right now. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to welcome you. So if you've never been on one of these or you don't have PIN, in the box, type in the number 1. If you have been to one before, type in the number 2. We'd appreciate that. So good stuff. All right. So as long as everybody can hear everybody and see everybody, it looks like we can because we've already got some 2s and some places that they're from. So I will ask you, Stephanie and Jenny, to pay attention to the chat for me. If they have any great questions, we definitely want to answer them. Which training shows how to determine if a property is good for micro? Well, that's actually kind of what we're talking about today, Jesse. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the concept of cashing in. In real estate, there's really 3 primary ways to make money. And then there's some what you would call subsets. There's micro flipping or wholesaling. There's fix and flip, which is the rehabbing. And then there's buy and hold, whether that's the short term or the long term rental. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And we're going to really just talk about those in the context of Jenny and Stephanie. And unfortunately, Dana won't be with us tonight. So we generally talk about PIN and how they're using it in conjunction with their business. But tonight we're going to be talking specifically about the different exit strategies. So we'll call this one cashing in. Last week, the first week we talked about finding great deals. So this is the 4th in a series of 4. The first week we talked about how do you use PIN to find deals. The next week we talked about, okay, we know how to use PIN. What the heck are we looking at? How do we interpret this information? So Jesse, that does answer some of those questions that you have about which ones are right. Last week we talked about finding the owner and then how do you lock up that property? And so we showed you all the different ways, the skip tracing, the direct mail, the cold calling, door knocking, going to auctions, all different kinds of ways of finding that owner and then locking that property in. Gave you some contracts and we talked a little bit about, the conversation and building rapport and who you need to show up as in order to help these folks. So then this week we are going to be talking about the 3 primary ways. We're going to primarily be slides tonight. I'm not going to go into PIN too much live unless someone's got a very specific request. So without much further ado, actually, Jesse, I can show you where to find those replays. It's not a problem. So I might go live in PIN for that specifically. So just give me some time. All right, perfect. Awesome. And then just the obligatory legal disclaimer. And I always ask Jenny, is it necessary when you first start to get a lawyer?
Not necessary, but highly recommended. So as you guys all know, in real estate, we work with contracts, and those can be a little bit nuanced. So depending on what state you guys are operating out of, whether you're working in a title closing state or an attorney closing state, typically attorneys are on staff, obviously with an attorney closing state, but you can also work with them and utilize their contracts as well. But if you guys have any questions, definitely make sure that you guys consult with your attorney. But if you are looking for contracts, PIN is also a wonderful resource to get contracts.
Yeah, and so what I'll do is I actually just went ahead and logged into PIN real quick. I'll get your question answered right now, Jesse. Also, Jay, go ahead. All of these replays that we do, they sit in a place. It's in our success center. So I'm gonna try. Let me see if I can do this without getting lost again. Boom. So we should be seeing PIN right now. Is that the case? Do we see PIN?
Yep, you're
We see
golden.
Pin.
Yes. Perfect. So anybody that wants to revisit any of the previous, since the beginning of January, any of the previous accelerations that we've done, we archive them in our Success Center. So what you're going to do is you're simply going to go up to the graduation cap, which is right here. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm moving my mouse around. We're going to click on that Success Center graduation cap. Once we click on it, it's going to bring us to the 4 main modules. So we've got the investor mindset, how to use PIN, understanding the data, and applying PIN to your business. Everything that we cover during these accelerations is also part of all of the videos that are in there, but they're not sort of in a practical way. It's just, hey, here's the filter, here's how you do this, here's how you do that. We're talking about how we apply it. So what I would say is, for sort of a technical or a practical approach, go back to any one of these, you're going to love them. But to specifically find any of the replays, you're going to go into the applying PIN to your business. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click on the CI acceleration link right here. When we click on this one, it's going to open up all of the previous sessions, as you can see. So from January week 1 to March of week 3 of last week. So those are going to be available forever, anytime at all. And I will tell you, as you guys can probably attest, Jenny and Stephanie, these sessions are not the same every single time, are they? They vary quite a bit.
Absolutely.
We have intent and structure behind this, but we usually
right.
tend to deviate, but it's for your benefit, I promise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have an intention, we have a sort of a purpose, but we always get a little bit off track. So great questions get asked. There's a lot of really good interaction from all of you. So we encourage you to join us tonight and interact. I will also say this before we move forward. We are going to replay this right now, which is live, but it's going to be live on Thursday with somebody behind answering questions in chat. So you won't be interacting with the actual video, but I'll be manning the chat, and any questions you have, I'll be happy to answer them for you. So great. Yeah, you're really welcome, Jesse. All right, so yeah, let's go back to the PowerPoints. Let me see if I can get that back on the screen without too much. Yes, I got a brand new monitor, and I can put a couple of screens on my monitor at the same time, and I still haven't quite figured it out. So I'm getting some technical challenges and training on the run today. All right, so you don't need a lawyer to start, but eventually you're going to want one. All right, so one other thing, I apologize, I clicked way too fast on that. If you are new and you don't have PIN, or maybe you're just thinking about getting it or whatever, we have actually right now a 7-day trial. And the way that it works is, if you want to, you can scan that QR code with your telephone, take a picture of it, or you can simply go to and you can't go to www, you actually have to go to the https:// new.connectedinvestors.com/acceleration. Man, that's a mouthful. Anyway, so that's all the housekeeping. If you want to get an opportunity to try PIN for free, follow that link to that trial offer. All right, beautiful. All right, so let's talk really quickly about how to decide which strategy makes the most sense. Now, sometimes the deal is really going to make that strategy sort of show up. But I think that before you decide on a strategy, you should really look at, well, what do you bring to the table? Which strategy makes the most sense for you? So I've got 3 things here. We've got skills and time. We have money matters, meaning what kind of money do you bring to the table? And then what is your sort of your overall goal? And the idea is that your skills and time are the things that you bring to the table that aren't necessarily specifically real estate. So if you've got a lot of time, then there's no excuse, right? If you have some really unique skill sets, like I did when I first came on board, I was very, very good at cold calling and just chatting with people. And so for me, making calls to homeowners was really very easy. How much money do you bring to the table, right? Where are you in the process? Do you have a lot of money, or are you looking to build capital? That will really influence the type of exit strategy you choose. And then finally, what is it that you're ultimately looking to do, right, in this business? And so what I want to do is, normally I have Jenny or Stephanie talk about one of these, but what I'd like to do is let's just talk about what shows up for you as we're talking about this. Is there anything that you want to bring up that would help somebody when they're deciding, hey, what exit strategy? Maybe your own story or a story of someone that you've heard. How did you decide what you were going to do, I guess is the question. Stephanie, go first.
So how did I decide which way to start, basically?
Yeah, so when you first started, you brought some things to the table that helped you in your business. Let's talk about
Sure.
that
I
a little
mean,
bit.
yeah, absolutely. When I first started, I relied on familial connections, right? So my family's in real estate. So my father's a real estate developer. Both my parents are attorneys. So I was really, really blessed in the fact that I had that support to lean on, right? And from them, I didn't personally bring a lot of skill sets to the table besides determination, right? I was
Well, maybe then
determined.
goals and patience.
Right, exactly. So I had goals, patience, and then and then I had time, right? So I had kind of
Yeah.
combination between those. And so how I was able to do it is I was able to be boots on the ground on some of the flip projects, right? So I was able to partner with my family. They were able to bring capital to the table. I was able to bring the time and the effort, basically, to go out and the want, right? So I actually went out and I found my parents came to visit me in Denver, and little did they know I don't remember it like this, but this is how my mom says she remembers it, that she came out to visit me and I had set up 10 tours of properties of condos that we were going on with my realtor. And I took my family on, and they're like, "What are we doing here? Like, why are we going to see these condos?" I'm like, "Oh, because I need a rental. I'd like to get a rental." And so I had actually sold my own personal first property, so I had cash of my own to invest in this rental, because subsequently I had bought a house with a friend, not a significant other, a friend, when I was like 24, to
Right.
save money. And so I had some cash to spend on these condos and I wanted their input, right? And so we went out and we looked at all the condos, and I was initially buying to buy for the a rental. So I was going in and I wanted to do a value add play to it. So I had a very, very small budget for what I could afford for this rental, right? Which confined me to condos. And so we were looking at condos, and I was trying to do the value add of what can I do to make it a 2-bedroom, right? To have 2 people that could rent the space. So we found a basement condo. I dwelt in a lot of basements at the beginning because they're cheap. And I found one weird little unit that I could make into a second bedroom, basically, and make it from a 1 to a 2-bedroom. So anyway, we bought that. I think it was $120,000 or something. And we did this conversion, and I painted it myself. And again, the thought process, oh, I'm going to rent it so I can have rental income, prior to knowing that that's not really going to cut it. I'm going to profit very, very little money off of that. And that's all my money in the world would have gone
Right.
into that condo. So then after that, they suggested, hey, maybe, my dad was like, maybe list it, right? Like, why not? Why don't you list it and see what happens? So again, not realizing this is a flip
Right.
is what we're doing. And it was a
Right.
fantastic flip. We made like $56,000 in 3 weeks or something, doing the work ourselves and buying this little condo. And so, yeah, I kind of didn't know exactly what I brought to the table, but I was determined. I wanted to do it. I went out, and I was also had luck, right? I mean, the luck of being born into a family
Yep.
that is able to provide me with those skill sets and stuff. So I took some of the skills I was trying to build, and determination, paired with some luck and some familial guidance, and I was able to do my first flip from that.
Yeah. I love that. And really, the reason I wanted Stephanie to share that was, as she's telling the story, there's different things that she brings to the table. Now, maybe she doesn't directly bring it, but her family. She was able to bring some skill, a little bit of money from the family, and they kind of combined it. She had the time, the desire. It was a goal of hers. And so the deal itself became real. The deal showed itself to her once she sort of, I don't know if the word open up to it, but you did kind of go, well, yeah, maybe we will sell it. You were thinking
This
initially you're going to hold it, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of life, and this has been my personal experience, and that's also because I started things young. And say when you're younger, you have less fear about what can go wrong, right?
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
So, but if you can try to think back and harken back to a time when you weren't fearful, right? A lot of things and doors have opened in my life because I've just thrown myself through them, right? I
Right.
didn't know
Yeah,
what was on the other side. I didn't know if it was going to work out, but I was willing to give it a shot. And I was sitting even here thinking about this, connect investors, what's, coaching and being a part of this organization. You just kind of throw yourself through the door of something
that's
that
right.
you think feels pretty good, right? And now I'm
Yeah,
sitting here with 2 colleagues speaking to you guys. So again, I think you can look at real estate investment the same way. It's calculated, but at some point you just kind of gotta set up the showings and show up, you know what I
that's
mean?
right.
And see
That's right.
what can happen. And who knows, maybe your
Exactly.
realtor knows someone that you can partner with. You just don't know until you show up and just give it a shot. And then you can change. You can change your strategy. You don't have to go with the first thing that you thought of, but you do have to
That's
just
right.
jump in to get started.
Yeah, that's right. And so, Jenny, if you were giving some advice to folks, maybe what you bring to the table or what you think they should or how they should sort of interpret this, because without cutting you off, I really think that this sort of helps people calibrate where they need to go. I think that if you know certain things that you do have and you don't have, then you know how to move forward, right? You know
Sure.
where you are and you know where you're not. So how would you share this with somebody, Jenny?
Yep. So for me, obviously, we're not all going to have the same skill set, right, that you bring to the table. So for me, I did not necessarily have the skills, but guess what? My husband's a general contractor, so he did have the right skills. So when we were trying to decide, what is our exit strategy going to be, it just made perfect sense for us to do fix and flips because we could. When we first started, I did not have the time. I was working a corporate job, 60 hours a week. So you better believe time was a huge commodity for me that I did not have. But the skills that I brought to the table is I have been in business for 25 plus years. I do know how to negotiate. I understand contracts. I understand research. That's what I brought to the table. Money definitely helps a little bit too. So, we were able to, throw our own capital at one of our first properties and we ended up being extremely successful. And that's when we took a hard look at each other saying, hey, maybe we need to make a pivot, make an adjustment in our
Yeah,
career path. And I took a step back from my full-time job of 25 years and we have been doing real estate ever since. So
I
again,
love
it
that.
really, you just have to kind of look and see, what's going on, what skills do I bring to the table? If not, you can partner with people. That's what JV opportunities are for. There's OPM, other people's money. So if you don't
That's
have
right.
capital, my gosh, there's a million different ways to access capital, private lenders being one of them that's directly connected with connected investors. So if you don't have the time or the resources or the skills, there's other people that do that are willing to, hold your hand or partner and move you across that finish line.
Yeah, I feel that it's really important to get clear about what you bring to the table because there's going to be certain things that you're going to excel at. Everybody has some things that they're good at, and then other things are not so good at. Quite frankly, I hate numbers. I love the numbers game, but I'm not very good at numbers, like math. Ugh. But I knew that knew how to do the MAO in order to really know what I was doing. So the skill set that I brought was tenacity, patience. I brought a really kind of like Jenny. I had a really long corporate career in sales, and so it was just a very natural fit. So what we're saying is, take stock of what you bring to the table. If you don't have a lot of capital and your goal is to build a giant empire, then maybe wholesaling is where you start. If you have some great skill sets and you know that you love to go and you build and maybe rehabbing is what you're going to do, and then maybe you're just somebody that has money and all you want to do is invest it in property. Well, then you're a buy and hold kind of guy or gal. And so the idea is that you just want to get really clear about where you are. So let's talk a little bit about the different exit strategies. We're not going to belabor these points. I really would love at the very end of our call to spend some time answering some questions. Some of this should be repeat, but that's on purpose. Like, everything that's worth saying is worth saying twice. They say, what is it? Measure twice, cut once kind of thing. Repetition is the mother of perfection or whatever the expression is. I can't remember. So the first one is microflipping, which is wholesaling. Let me ask you this, Jenny. What's your favorite thing about microflipping? I love the question. What's your favorite thing about wholesaling microflipping?
My favorite thing is honestly, there is zero risk involved. In my mind's eye, if you're risk adverse, you're a little bit nervous about that, that is the prime place to start in real estate, because really you don't necessarily have any skin in the game. And as long as your contract was structured right, all you're doing is putting up EMD, your earnest money deposit, which is protected in your due diligence period in that contract. Right. So really, from a risk tolerance perspective, micro flipping, aka wholesaling, is probably the best place for you to start.
Yeah, it's the simplest place to start. It isn't the easiest, but it's the simplest, because all it really is, and look at the picture, right? The picture is you're in the middle. So you as the wholesaler are going to those sellers, the motivated seller. And all of those sellers, remember the lake analogy, those people live in those kinds of properties, or they have those kinds of properties. So the probate, the vacant, the pre-foreclosure, that's where these sellers are. So our job is to go find those sellers. PIN. 43,000 zip codes, more leads than you would ever want to know to do with. You can find them there. The next thing is then you need to take this seller, once you get that person to agree and go on contract, you need to then sell that contract to somebody else. Well, we're not going to sell it. What we're going to do is we're going to assign it. Okay, so we're going to assign it. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So there's really just three main components. There's you as the wholesaler, there's the motivated seller, and the motivated buyer. Fair enough? That's wholesaling. I mean, there's obviously pieces and steps, but that's the gist of it. The average profit is about 10 grand. I know that when Dana's on, hers is a little bit higher than that. She's done very well, but it's about 10 grand across the country. So anybody interested in making an extra 10 grand by putting a motivated seller with a motivated buyer together and then make 10 grand out of it? To me, that's the simplest way to make a bunch of money, all right? Just called wholesaling. Now, what does it look like? So there's two contracts involved. The first one is an offer to purchase or a real estate purchase and sale agreement. Whichever contract you decide, they're both fine. But the contract needs to be assignable. So it would be like, your company's buying it / or assignable would be the idea. So you have your offer to purchase, and then what you're doing is when you get that signed, you now have what's called equitable interest in that property. You have the right to take that contract and assign it to another buyer, and then that buyer will assume all of the responsibilities of that contract, and then you as the wholesaler, you'll get your wholesale fee. Did I explain that okay, you think?
Yeah, I thought that was perfect.
Great. So that is wholesaling, literally in a nutshell. Now, the other piece of it is once you find the seller, which is amazing, PIN does that, helps you do that. The next step is you've got to find a buyer. So if you don't bring a lot of money to the table and you're not looking to hold on to the property, then you need to assign it. You need to go find a buyer. We're not going to go through this whole buyer thing again, but over the last couple of weeks, we talked specifically about how do you go into the software in the advanced section under the advanced search, and you can find the landlord flipper toggles under the investor type on the attributes tab. I'm doing all that from memory. I know it's good. So you all get a quiz to see if you can find it. And that's how you can find buyers. There's a really cool hack. There's a way that we explain it in the Success Center. So inside of how to use PIN, I show you how to do that finding the buyers hack. The other thing that you're going to be able to do, which is really powerful with PIN, is the CI marketplace. Jenny loves that. She talks a little bit. Actually, Jenny, why don't you talk a little bit about it, the marketplace?
So if you guys aren't familiar with the CI marketplace, it's actually one of your deal types. You can categorize your property. You as an investor can actually go upload your property into the CI marketplace. The back end folks at Connected Investors will vet it, make sure that your contract's legit, make sure that everything's on the up and up. It's then posted in the marketplace. So then you've got end buyers like myself and Stephanie that can go into the marketplace and shop your properties, and I can deal directly and negotiate directly with you as the wholesaler. This is a beautiful scenario because a lot of times we're working with big conglomerates like the New Westerns of the world, which is fine, but a lot of times they don't leave a lot of meat on the bones because it's past, the transactions touch so many different hands. So when you guys post your properties in the marketplace, I now can negotiate directly with you. So at the win, you get your wholesaler assignment fee and I take on that property as the end buyer. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, toggle over that tab in your deal type inside the easy mode or the advanced mode. And you can jump right in there and see other properties of other like-minded wholesalers that have their properties in there. It's a great place to put it, amongst other places, the Facebook Marketplace. I mean, there's other avenues as well too, but please, I beg you to put them in the CI marketplace, because I'm always actively searching for properties across the entire US.
That's right.
So I would love to see more properties populated inside of there.
Yeah. So you not only do you have the ability to do this really cool hack where you go and you locate landlords and flippers in the local area of the property that you're actually looking at, you can use the CI marketplace to really promote to thousands and thousands of people. And I'll tell you, the marketplace isn't exclusive to CI members. If you have a free account, you have access, one, to the marketplace, but two, you also have access to the Success Center. So you could go back and watch any of these videos again as well. Yeah, really cool stuff on our site there. I love it. Someone asked, how is microflipping different than wholesaling? Just by spelling. Just the spelling is different. It's literally the same thing. The really short story is the use of software data and the buyer's network makes the whole wholesaling process much shorter. And so we called it microflipping, just a moniker that we've used. So yeah, we're showing how to develop my list of buyers, but the video seems to be older and doesn't correspond with the pin research. How do I find it? Yeah, I'll actually show it to you right now. There's actually a video from either last week or the week before in the acceleration that is the exact same thing that you're looking at right now, but I'll just take 1 minute to show everybody that, because
Hey, Chris, while you're pulling that up, I'll answer Scott's question. He said, I'm new to this. Who pays the $10,000? So Scott is talking about that $10,000 assignment fee. Your end buyer will pay that assignment fee. So you basically build that. So let's just say that let's make it easy. You go under contract with the seller for a property at $100,000. You now put that property into the CI marketplace because you're wholesaling it for $110,000. So me as the end buyer, I'm seeing that property purchase price at 110. I don't even actually a lot of times know what you're buying the property for or what you are under contract for. So you are basically intentionally building in whatever your wholesale fee is. And as long as those numbers work at $110,000 for me as an end buyer, after I've run my numbers, I've run the rehab, I know what my holding costs are, I then can make you an offer. I can either accept 110 or maybe I need to renegotiate with you, but either way, the end buyer is the one that pays that $10,000 assignment fee.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jenny.
Yep.
So Jesse, I just basically navigated right to the landlord flipper toggle. So what you do is, I was wrong. It's not the attributes tab, it's the ownership tab. So you go into the advanced mode at the top of the screen. You then have to choose a location in order to get to the next tab. So I just chose Tampa because that's where I'm from. I then select landlord and flipper, and I don't need to choose anything else. Now, when you're looking at the screen right now, you're going to see 4 selections that are automatically there. Just leave them, they're fine. The ones you're looking at are the investor, company, or what is that? The person, company, investor, owner. All of those kinds of people's own are landlords and flippers, so we want them to stay there. All we then do is hit search and we wait. I will tell you that I share this with everybody all the time. It's such a great hack. It's literally using what's called unstructured data. That's all I'm going to say about that. But here's how it works. I now have 5,700 or 5,600 or so properties. I'm not looking for the property. I'm looking for the history of the property. So when you click on any property, you click on it, what will happen is it's going to open up the property card. On here, we're looking for this gray box. It's the flip history. And the idea is, this is the one sort of cut and paste cumbersome thing you've got to do. If you want to find them, we do not skip trace this kind of data because there's no structure to it. It's just a field. So what you have to do is locate the name of the business or the person that did the fix or flip. And then what you'll do is you'll Google their name with a city, and then you will be able to locate them. I promise you it works great. It's a bit cumbersome. After, 20, 30, 40 addresses, you're going to have a bunch of different folks that you can reach out to. And you would say something like this. Hey, I've got a property under contract, and I'd be curious. It looks like you did a flip back a while ago. Are you still involved in that? Yes. Okay, well, I've got a property under contract. Would you be interested in looking at it? Something really simple like that. Now, you don't know them. That's why you say I've got a property under contract. If they know what they're doing, they're not going to try to steal it from you. I mean, they might, but they're not going to. That's why we got it under contract. So that's the hack. So this will get you all the landlords and flippers you could possibly want. It's one of my favorite hacks. So great. right, let's go back to the web show. All right, so I hope that answered your question there, Jesse. I'm new to this. Who pays the $10,000?
We got that.
Technically, it's
We covered
oh,
that
you
one.
did. That's what you were saying. Okay, thank you,
Yep.
thank you, thank you. What is my title in this process? I'm not the seller or the investor. Who am I? You're the wholesaler. The investor. You can call yourself an investor. I like to make a distinction. I allow people to call themselves an investor, but really when you first start, you're not really investing money, you're investing your time. So what you really are is a wholesaler. You're kind of that middleman. Once you start investing your own money, man, own that title. That's what I say. You got to earn it. That's my opinion. You were kind of nodding your head,
I
Steph.
would completely disagree. Do
Okay,
not
go for it.
call
Why?
people up and call them a wholesaler and say you're a wholesaler.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I didn't realize he was
Always
talking
refer
about what's the
yourself
title
as
that
an
I'm
investor.
telling people. Yeah, you don't tell people you're
I
a
would
wholesaler.
just say in general, you're an investor.
Yes.
That's your title. That's what you should think of yourself as, whether it's your money, your time, whatever. You're making money off of real estate, right? And
Fair
in
enough.
a creative way. So I would say, even though the actual title for what you're doing, so if you're speaking within a circle of other investors and they ask you
Right.
who you are and what you do, then you would say, oh, well, I wholesale. So
Right.
that's how you'd introduce yourself, definitely. And then if you're speaking out in a marketing, always just call yourself an investor.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
feel
Perfect.
comfortable with that
Yep.
moniker, right? You should feel comfortable with that. I'm a wholesaler, but I'm also an investor, right? I mean, I've done $1.5 million in wholesale fees in the past 2.5 years. So
Yeah.
that's an investor, right? If that's not an
That's
investor,
right.
I don't know what it is, even though it's making money from wholesaling. So
That's right.
I think that you can definitely own that and not feel less than saying that you're a wholesaler, basically.
Yeah. I wasn't taking anything away. I was making it a carrot. I believe in that carrot method, but you're totally right, Steph. Some folks, I agree. Yeah, it's perfect. But yeah, you can I would call yourself an investor when you're talking to like somebody, right? Like a not another investor, so to speak. Yeah, that's a really
Yeah,
great
exactly.
distinction. Yeah. I thought the owner information in the property information line cross. I don't know what you're saying, Jesse. Isn't the landlord information on the property information is listed? So yes and no. What you're missing, Jesse, is you can find the owner information for any property, but that's not exactly what we're looking for. What we're looking for are people that are active investors. And the easiest way to find it in PIN is to use that advanced search, because what it does is it tells you who flipped the property, right? They didn't wholesale it, they flipped it, which means they renovated it and then resold it. That's really the distinction. And so when you're looking, you can go and you can find, vacant properties and owners. That's great. But we're doing a hack. We need that unstructured data, which is just part of the record of what's the flip history. That's the key right there, Jesse. So don't mistake that and mix that up. Okay. Do you need a realtor's license to wholesale? Well, it depends on where you are. If you're in Oklahoma, you do, but nowhere else in the country do you need a realtor's license to wholesale. So hope that answers your question. Awesome. All right. So next one. A lot of times people will say, well, what if I can't sell the property? Am I stuck as a wholesaler? What are your thoughts about that, Stephanie?
No, you're not stuck. You have a contingency, an inspection period. So it'd be an inspection period or a due diligence period, some sort of contingency period, right? So it depends on what your contract stipulates. But typically you'd be exiting during your inspection period. You'd need to make sure that the inspection periods on your contract say that you can exit the contract during the inspection period unilaterally for any reason that you choose, right? So although it's 4 inspections, as in like most people are thinking you're getting an inspector to come out to the property to see if the roof is any good, right? You could also use that inspection period to decipher if you have any end buyers, if this is a good deal, etc., right? So that's what you're using the inspection period for. This is very, very important though, right? So I know that Dana had once told a story that in North Carolina on one of the contracts, there's actually 2 due diligence periods, 2 due diligence inspection periods, and she had missed one. So one of them made the money go hard immediately, that yes, you were able to have an inspection period, but you weren't able to get out of that contract. And so she had written the wrong one basically, and she lost her earnest money. So I'd never heard of that. That was a new contractual, like new contracts versus the contracts I've worked in Florida, which is like a FAR bar standardized contract, or Colorado, there's a standardized contract used in real estate for realtors. They have a very simple one. It's just a unilateral ability to leave, right? So again, know what your contract says and then make sure you're abiding by it. So if you have a 5-day inspection period, also understand, when does that inspection period start and end, right? Do you have a time of day deadline in your contracts? Because
Right.
we have time of day. So it's all those little nuances. But as long as you're aware of what those are, and they're not complicated. So if you don't know, ask a realtor, ask an attorney,
Right.
ask a title company if you don't know how to calculate it, but just make sure you understand that first and then go in. You're good. You can cancel as long as you're keeping track of that. The only time you wouldn't is if you were not keeping track of how many days you had left on your inspection period, or if you did not terminate appropriately, right? So that would be
Correct.
giving notice, usually written notice that's sent over to the seller or the seller's representative within that time frame.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for sharing. So you are not stuck. There are ways to get around it. You could also just go back and renegotiate the contract. We actually talked about that. Sometimes you've got to go back and say, hey, this isn't working. And when that happens, if you have built enough rapport, it's not a big deal. You just go back, you explain it. Sometimes they go for it, sometimes they don't go for it. That's just the way that it works. So just keep that in mind. So you're not necessarily stuck. I wanted to, Jenny, would you mind answering the question of Jay? Jay says, I'm a licensed realtor. Does it restrict me from being a wholesaler or any other transaction other than traditional transaction based on commission? You know what he's saying.
Yep, Jay, the answer is absolutely no. The only recommendation or piece of advice that I would give you as a licensed agent, especially if you're operating in your state of business, you always need to disclose. That is part of our fiduciary responsibility, is to make sure that we disclose that we are a licensed agent. And as long as you've disclosed that, then you can do any form of investing that you want. So I am also an active licensed agent in the state of Utah. So even if I flip properties, you better believe I'm listing my own properties, because I'm gonna maximize my ROI on that, but I always have to disclose, even on any of my marketing, that I am the owner agent of that property, or any dealings that I do. Even if I place an offer on a property, I always disclose that I'm a licensed agent. So it's just a matter of disclosure, but you can absolutely wholesale, fix and flip, buy and hold, whatever. Just make sure that you disclose.
Yeah, love that. So I'll answer this quick question of of Jesse. Yes, well, depending upon which PIN membership you have, we have an older one that was grandfathered. We have some new pricing now. I don't know where you're sitting at, Jesse. If you do currently have PIN and you do have the deal insight, that is something that you could use to create your buyer and seller sites. So inside of PIN, it's very simple to get to. You go to the top right hand of the page, of any page, you're going to see the 4 boxes that's called My Apps. When we click on My Apps, what it's going to do is it's going to open up a selection of different applications that are available. If you have the old version, old subscription of PIN, it's possible that it will look just like mine. If you have the new subscription, none of it is automatic. There might be some packages, but none of it's automatic, so it's all a la carte. So the answer is we have something called Deal Insight. I will give you 2 quick sentences on Deal Insight. It's a squeeze page. It's not an SEO generated website. What it is it's a place for you, like you're asking, to collect information to show credibility. Hey, here's my site. It will be whatever the site name is on the Deal Insight. So my recommendation is go get a URL and then have the URL forward over to your Deal Insight website if you use PIN. It's going to be able to create as many squeeze pages as you need. So the buyers, the sellers, that kind of thing. It's up to you how you want to do it. But remember, it doesn't generate traffic. You have to push people to your websites, your squeeze pages. So great question. I think using a lawyer to write up the contract, you can do that, but you don't absolutely need a lawyer to write up a contract. Contract Genie is another app that we offer as well. So some of the older subscriptions have it as part of there. Some of the newer ones don't. But again, it's right here. It's Contract Genie. It's all 50 states, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands. In fact, I was looking at one today with someone that I'm working with, and he was just beside himself, excited how easy it was to really just open it up and then just start following the prompts. So yeah, we definitely have both of those. I will tell you that sometimes Dana will chat and share her story. She used to use nothing but Contract Genie contracts. Then she developed a really close relationship with her title company, and they had their own contracts. And so she started to adopt their contracts. So you may find yourself starting off with something like Contract Genie and then going into your own title company, your own lawyer, and using their contracts. Fair enough?
I would personally suggest that you use whatever the contract is that the realtors use in your
Right.
area. That's what I would
Right.
think is the best, because first, it has validity. It has a lot of protections for both you and for the seller. And when you take it, or when that seller takes it to a representative, as they often do, right? If they take it to an agent, if they take it to their own attorney to review, there's no warning flags that go up, right? Because it's a universally accepted contract in that area.
Sure.
It shows that you know what you're doing, and it's already written for you, and it's easy. It's free. You can just Google it, or ask a realtor. Go ask a realtor, and they can also give you a copy of it to use.
Yep. So Jesse, I don't know if you have it or not. Some of the older subscriptions did have it as part of it. So I would encourage you to reach out to our support team. So support@connectedinvestors.com. Just ask them, hey, do I have Contract Genie or Deal Insider, any of the other things as part of your plan? I just don't know off the top of my head. Bess, you asked, you're not good at finding the ARV. Well, I'll show you exactly where it is. And I'll also let you know that there's about 6 or 7 different videos where we talk specifically about the ARV. We talk about it in these conversations, and there's a lot of training inside the Success Center that you can find. So where you're going to go, it's really, really simple. You're going to go to PIN. So if we just click on the PIN icon, the ARV is the after repair value. Now, the way that you get that number typically is by running comps. The way that PIN does it is a little bit different, and I'll actually, do either one of you want to speak on that in terms of how, traditionally you found ARV, and then how you sort of use it in conjunction with PIN's ARV?
Sure. So so I would never take one site verbatim. So I think I always like to cross-reference. So typically I will go to PIN. I will look at PIN's ARV, which it's going to pull up right here in just a second on this property card right there. After repair value, $234,000. So I will go to that site. I'll maybe go to Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia.com. There's a lot of different free platforms, and I will cross-reference. I will see what everybody else's ARV is. This is a very high level. You should always be running additional comps on these properties, but I will go aggregate all of those different sites that I go to, and then I will take the average of them. And that gives me a very conservative ARV to be working with. But for starters, just coming into PIN and looking at that property card is really what you need to initially get started, and then you can start running a little bit more solidified numbers on that particular property.
Yeah. And to answer the question, it's week 2, Jesse. So you were saying what week video do we talk about deals? It's week 2. So any week 2 video, that's what we're talking about. It's deal or no deal. It's called deal or no deal. All right. So there was one other place to get the ARV as well. Jenny's 1000% right. We've got one other spot inside of the everything report. So when you click on the everything report, you're also going to get, it's more of a range, but it's still the same idea. And Jenny's right. You got to look at it a couple of different ways. There are some very standard ways of finding it. I know that Stephanie has a very specific, like she looks at, to explain how you do it, Stephanie, as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So I look at ARV by running. Honestly, I'm looking usually on Zillow for my ARV because it's like an MLS, right? So it's like you have access to an MLS anywhere in the United States, right? So it's a little harder in non-disclosure states like a Texas, right? You can't see the sold comps, but in Colorado or Florida where I work, you can see the sold comps. So you're going in and you're finding a very small radius around the property. So you're looking in the same neighborhood, you're not crossing major roads, you're looking for the same approximate size of home. So you don't want to be any more than about 150 to 200 square feet larger than your subject property. And then you're also looking for same age. So you usually want to be within 10, 15 years of the same build. You want to look for the same structure type. So if it's a brick ranch, you're looking for a brick ranch. So you've got a lot of different points that you're looking at when you get very specific. But the biggest ones, if you are overwhelmed by everything I just said, which I imagine some people might be, then just look at square footage and make sure it's close by, right? So square footage and make sure it's in the same neighborhood. So you shouldn't be, when I say neighborhood, that means don't cross bodies of water, don't cross major highways or roads, like look in the same area so that you're looking for houses that look like each other, right? If you get into the more rural regions, that gets a lot more difficult. I've worked in rural regions. It's a much more of a finesse thing. There's not so many data points to look at, and you just kind of have to go with what your gut is versus the data. But in populated, denser areas, you can definitely find comps within your same neighborhood. And if you're pushing too hard is a golden rule, right? If you're pushing too hard, if you're leaping over streets, if you're just having to search forever to find something to use as a comp for your after renovation value, it's probably not there, right? So you're probably searching too hard, and that's probably not going to be a great deal. It's usually pretty self-evident when your comps are right around what the after renovation value is. And sometimes you're trying too hard, and then you push out too far, and it's not really a comp anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where you can locate the ARV. And what I was sharing with you is on the property card of PIN, when you scroll down through it, you have this thing called the market research tool. And what you can do is you can see that this little green little pin right here is actually the target property. So it's this address, this 359 Golden Road. And then what Stephanie was kind of talking about is you want to stay in this area of the property, right? We wouldn't necessarily want to go across because this looks like it could be a big road. So we want to avoid going that way. We would want to stick more in this range right here. So I hope that gives you all a good visual representation of where the comp from a geography point starts. PIN, you can list it right there. All I did was have the property address. I scrolled down to the research tool, which is right there on the card. And then I simply hit the plus button until I was sort of inside it. And then I can do the listed. I can look at the recently solds. I can look at any rentals in the area, etc. And we do go over this in another video, but it's just perfect timing for what we're talking about. Yeah, awesome. And was there any more? Which of you is in Southern Cal? I'm in Southern OC. I'm not sure if my area is worth researching. Thoughts? It's not really what this conversation is about, Jesse. There's opportunities everywhere. Stephanie, how do you want to say it? You're muted.
I said, how much money do you have? I mean, your entry starting point here is very, very high. You're talking about high eights, right? As an entry level home here, 800,000, and then you're really picking up flips around $1 million in Orange County. So that's your starting point is about 1,950,000 maybe, right? And then your earnest money deposits are like 3% of purchase price. So we're talking very large amounts of earnest money. So that's 30 grand, 50 grand is typical for your earnest money. So again, if you have that kind of cash lying around, because when you are a wholesaler, you do need to have earnest money, right? And when we're talking about $1 million properties, you are talking with a more savvy buyer or seller most of the time. These are not people that are going to get the wool pulled over their eyes as much, you know, or not as much, but in general, they're going to be a little bit tougher negotiators. Correct. So if you don't know what you're talking about, speaking to someone selling $1 million property, whether that person knows what they're talking about, the seller does or not, they probably do have a realtor that knows because that realtor stands to make a lot of money, right, from selling $1 million property. So they're going to have other people that are helping them. So I would say, is it possible? Absolutely, but it's a challenging market. You should be prepared for that. And you might want to look further inland if you're starting in Southern California, where your buy-in is more in that $600,000 range rather than in $1 million range.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. So let's move to the next one, fix and flip. We're actually running a little bit late, so we're going to move forward. So the next one is fix and flip, or the rehab. Same idea, same thing. So this really is Jenny's specialty in terms of what she's doing. So the idea with the fix and flipper is it's typically you finding the property and then you fixing the property or hiring somebody to fix the property. Couple minutes, Jenny. Tell us a little bit about how you do it and why you like fixing and flipping so much.
So for me, we talked about skills at the beginning of this conversation, right? So what skill sets do you bring to the table? So it just made perfect sense for us because my husband is a GC, a general contractor, that we pursued this option. So I acquire properties in a million different ways, right? One of which is obviously from wholesalers or micro flippers. I've also purchased on-market properties going directly through a real estate agent. And lastly, my niche area is I really love to acquire properties either in pre-foreclosure or even at auction. If it goes to that point, it eliminates a lot of my competition. And then of course you go in and you rehab the property and then you put it back up on the market. So which for me, it made sense to get my real estate license so I didn't leave any money on the table or give away 3% of my profit margin. So for us, that's been a very successful, very lucrative business that we've done the last several years, our average gross profit is actually substantially higher than that. But again, we're doing 90% of the work ourselves. Very rarely do we have to sub out, you know, a lot of the trades. So for us, it's been a really fun adventure.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, one of the things about that is the skill set that y'all brought to the table was that your hubby did it, right? And so it made so much sense. Maybe you're really good at building. Maybe you're not great with people, but you're really good at the building part. Maybe you want to partner with somebody. Maybe you want to go find some in the marketplace where they are currently for sale. So there's definitely different ways to make money as a fix and flipper. What would be your biggest piece of advice, your biggest pitfall to avoid for a fix and flipper, if you have one?
Yep, my biggest pitfall, honestly, I would highly recommend that you guys do an inspection on the property, whether you hire an inspector to do it or whether you have a general contractor go through that property. If it's not you, you need to pay somebody to go through that property, because you will always peel back the onion and there's going to be a lot more involved in that property than you ever anticipated. So having a contingency clause built into your rehab budget is also key, because you'll typically 9 times out of 10 dip into that contingency. So, but again, my biggest piece of advice, run a preliminary title report, which the everything report inside PIN basically suffices as such, but then definitely walk that property so you know what you're getting into.
Yeah. So Monica, inside of our Success Center is where you're going to be able to watch any of these replays. We're also going to replay this session on Thursday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It'll have live chat, but it'll just be this video playing again at 7 o'clock. Thank you for sharing that, Jenny. So really in the scenario, it's you as the acquirer getting that property. In Jenny's case, her and her husband do all the work. And then in Jenny's case, she is also the realtor. So in this case, she's all 3 pieces. You may not do the work and you may not be a realtor, but man, you could get a crew together and then work with a specific realtor. So fixing and flipping really is going to be, where do you fit best? I would say that it's the biggest, personally, I think it's the place where you can get hurt the most, because you make the just finding stuff that, and I actually saw some video of her husband Ryan. It's Ryan, right? Yeah. And he's in well above his ankle deep water in the bottom of a house, and so they weren't planning on that when they went into it. So just
you peel
something
back
to be
the onion.
careful.
When you walk on the floor and it's soft, we opened that up and it had rotten termite damage. So every joist on that property had to be replaced,
Yep.
as well as some of the piers. So yeah, it was a beauty.
Yeah, I love that. So that's the micro flipping, and then the fix and flipping. The last one is called the buy and hold, and that's really just those that are doing the long-term rental. Getting into the buy and hold.
Oh, Craig, we just lost sound. Not quite back. Well, Craig's
So
working
buy
on
and
that.
hold though, let me jump in on buy and hold,
Yep.
right? So the buy and hold is obviously a pretty straightforward strategy. I think it's probably the strategy that most people are the most familiar with if they're thinking about how you make money in real estate, right? As a landlord. So you're buying a property, you're holding on to it, and you're renting it out. The thing that can be differentiated here with buy and hold strategy is at what length of time are you renting it out, right? So obviously the traditional long-term rentals are going to be year-long rentals. Typically you're talking more of a year-long standard length. You've got midterms, which have been made for so like traveling nurses use them, but also like digital nomads like myself. I'm sitting in a furnished finder home right now that's a 3-month rental with the option to extend to 4 months, right? So you have a little bit higher price point and more turnover, but it's not gonna be restricted by nightly rentals. So that's like your STR. So you've got STR, which is short-term rental. That's the ideally that would be your highest return on a piece of property because you're renting nightly or weekly. Again, there are quite a few restrictions that are starting to pop up, so you have to be cognizant of that, and that's why it's nice to have the option. So if you're buying a property, you could do any of those. You want to kind of make sure that it works for any of those strategies. Otherwise, if you're pigeonholing yourself into one, you've got to be able to rent it out with that one strategy, basically. So anyway, buy and hold, that's a lot of what I've been building my portfolio around. Jenny and I are actually sitting on a contract for a triplex in Colorado that is a buy and hold possibility. We actually might just flip it. But yeah, so we're actually doing a deal like that right now. We
Craig,
still
you're
can't
still
hear
a little
you.
sound. Bummer. Nope,
So I'll
still not.
talk about cap rate now because that's still here. So the target capitalization rate on these different buy and holds, on here it's 5 to 10%. And it's just very much dependent on the region that you're in. You should be familiar again with where you are, what the area's going cap rates are. If you're in something like Southern California, your cap rate's going to be much lower. The idea there is that the strategy is the equity play over time, right? So the asset might be much more expensive, but the idea is that over time you might make a lot more money off of it, right? By just sitting on it and hopefully most of your mortgage is being covered by your tenant, right? Versus maybe in Iowa or in more rural places, specifically the Midwest and some of the Sun Belt, you're going to see a much higher cap rate on those single families or multifamilies, namely because the real estate cost is so much less expensive, right? So your real estate cost is so much less expensive, therefore your cap rate can go way up because you're buying it at a lower cost, but your rents aren't necessarily way reduced. And so you're actually cash flowing on those. But if you hold that for 10 years versus if you hold a property in Southern California for 10 years, you're probably not going to see that return from an equity gain, or the value of that asset probably won't explode, but you'll have been making cash the entire time. So it's dependent on that target capitalization rate is basically dependent on what your own appetite is, right? Like I want to see a higher than a 10 cap. So what's your appetite for the cap rate? What do you need to make? Where are you? And how expensive are those assets?
So the
Still
operative
can't hear
word
you.
there was cash flow. So if you guys got nothing from that cap rate, just honestly, as long as you've got cash flow there, that's always a beautiful thing. Somebody else is paying off your mortgage, whether you did a private money loan, a hard money loan, a DSCR, it really doesn't matter what sort of financing you did. As long as the cash flow's there, whatever your comfort level is, it could be $100, it could be a couple $1,000s. It really doesn't matter. As long as the cash flow spread is there, that is what you're going for on a buy and hold. That is where generational wealth comes into play. That is passive income at its finest. So buy and holds are a beautiful thing. Still no Craig. So we'll answer a couple questions while we're, Bob, you asked a question, how does going to online auctions eliminate some of my competition? Because not everybody has cash. You cannot get private money or hard money loans to play at auction. You have got to have the capital at your disposal. You typically have to show up with a cashier's check. If it's in person, it's usually a $20,000 cashier's check that you show, and you have to have proof of funds within, or you basically have to fund that project within 24 hours. So that enables me to eliminate a lot of my competition because not everybody has that liquid capital at their disposal. So anyway, it's just a different way to acquire property. So if and when you get there, and there are private money lenders, if you guys are experienced investors, that will support some of those type of investments ahead of time as well.
All right, how about now? Can you hear me?
You're in,
Yes.
you're back.
Good, awesome. Thank you for covering for me. I appreciate that. I don't know. It's wonky. So on the screen, real quick recap. We had a really good session. Thank you so much for sharing, by the way, gals. Really good stuff. The three main ways are micro flipping, fix and flip, and buy and hold. What I will say that there's some subcategories. There's creative deal structure. There's sub two. There's a lot of different ways. With PIN, and I'll give you kind of a high level. With PIN, it does not matter which strategy you're going to use. You still need to find property. So the cool thing about PIN is that it's a lead generating machine. You will be able to find properties. Then your job will be to sift through those properties, find the ones that are the best. And the easiest way to find out is to actually reach out to them somehow, postcard, letter, email, voicemail, text, whatever, and find out if they're interested in selling. Once you find that out, then you're going to have a much better idea of where does this property potentially fall in the whole exit strategy? Is it going to be a buy and hold, fix and flip, or a wholesale? And then again, a lot of that's going to have to do with you. So wherever you find yourself sitting is where you're going to be. What's beautiful is PIN can help you, and it'll meet you anywhere you are. Now, we have talked a little bit about, just to real quickly, if you're becoming excited and you want to get into PIN because you got to start looking for those deals, there's that QR code again. Go ahead and scan that. And if you're interested, go to the https new.connectedinvestor.com/acceleration. Go there. But what I wanted to do is we talked a little bit about funding, and Jenny mentioned it. Thank you. Privatelenders.com. That is our own funding arm. It's not it's like our sister company, and they are really there to help you with fixing and flipping and buying and hold. So if you're looking for private funding, go to privatelenders.com. And then here's some other ways that you can fund opportunities. Yeah, there you go. Let me think, was there anything else I wanted to show you? Oh yeah, I was going to show you this real quickly. So if you decide to go to privatelenders.com, it's a very simple form. You basically just answer the questions. It's one right after the other. So it asks you how much you need, etc. Somebody had asked a question earlier about the contracts. You had said, are the contracts blank? Only the pieces that you need to fill in are blank, but the rest of the contract is filled out. So yes, you'll be able to put in your name and your address and all that good stuff. So that'll be there for you. If you would like to connect with Jenny or Stephanie or Dana, we would love that, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go into PIN and you're gonna go to connectedinvestors.com. And then what you're looking for is you're looking for the community tab up in the left-hand corner. You're gonna go to the community tab, you're gonna go to members, and then you're gonna type in their names. Jenny Nelson, just as you see it. Stephanie, just as you see it. I think it's A-N-I-E. So S-T-E-P-H-A-N-I-E, Siebert. And then Dana is Eudania Burrell. But yeah, look them up, connect with them on the and the member forum in the CI Marketplace. They do really wonderful stuff with folks that need some additional hand holding and stuff like that. So if that's something you feel like you need, certainly reach out to them and see what they can do to help you out. That's really the show tonight. The session. I don't know why I call it a show. I guess I want to be an actor when I was a kid. So I wanted to just, were there any other questions? Do you have good deals that are not in MLS? That's what PIN is. Yeah, exactly. Looks like you guys are doing a good job on funding in rural area. Yeah, try privatelenders.com. See if they can help you out. I'd fill out an application. I will say that when you go to private lenders, they're really looking at three things. They're looking at the deal primarily. Then they're looking at your experience. How much do you have? How many deals have you done? And then the third thing is they look at your credit. So they have to sort of, they want to go on the deal and your experience. The credit isn't as important, but just keep that in mind. If you fill out the application, if you go on and you fill it out, it's better to fill it out with an actual property. Otherwise, it's kind of like, to be decided. So just something to consider. They like the deal itself. That's really what prompts them to lend the money. So, the how to find deals is Deal or No Deal, week 2. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Did either one of you have anything any parting wisdom or advice that you wanted to share with our amazing folks that have stayed with us this whole hour?
I think always our parting advice is just put all of this information and the tools into action, right? You're never going to get anywhere unless you put it into action. So I know you might be reticent, a little bit nervous or scared, right? Because there's always a little bit of risk involved, but you're not going to learn unless you actually try it and get doing it. And we're all here as a support system too, the investment angels. Craig is here, Connected Investors.
That's right.
You guys have 43,000 plus zip codes at your fingertips. You have zero excuses for lead generation because you've got access to it. And if you don't, then subscribe to it and you will have access to it. So
right.
There is enough real estate to go around, I promise you. So we love to spread the wealth and our knowledge as well too. So we appreciate the time and having you allowing us to be on this session with you, Craig.
Yeah, no, I love that. Stephanie, real quickly, we had somebody ask a last question. All right, it says, what do you say to real estate agents? I was actually talking to Eric Rudd earlier today, one of our members, and he was talking about the thing that you shared about the agent outreach. And there was 3 or 4 things that you say to the agent to tell them what you're looking for. Would you be willing to just share that 2 minutes with everybody as we leave the call tonight?
Absolutely, yeah. A little teaser so you can reach out if you want more, but I work with a lot of real estate agents. That's how I get a lot of my deals, right? So some of the buzzwords or keywords I like to hit on when I have my intro call with them, explaining who I am, what I do, etc., is listen, I'm unrepresented, I'm cash, and I'm a quick close. Unrepresented tells them how they're going to get paid. If I'm unrepresented, I'm not looking for a commission, right? So I'm unrepresented. I'm looking for pre-market listings. So I'm interested on things that aren't market ready, right? So I don't say
Right.
off the market because it can be off-putting. So pre-market listings, and anything that wouldn't be good on the market. So hoarder homes, anything that needs a quick cash sale, that needs to move quickly, that has a lot of motivation. So that's kind of how I steer people. That's what I'm saying to those realtors. But I am touching, again, big one, how do they get paid, right? So you're not trying to go around them. You're not trying to cut them out. I'm unrepresented. I'd be happy for you to represent me on any deal that you bring to me. That's going to be one of
Yeah.
your biggest tips and tricks when speaking to a realtor.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Steph. I really appreciate that. And thank you for asking that question. I guess it was Sally. So yeah, so if you want to connect with Jenny, Stephanie, Dana, myself, just go to the community, look us up under the members section. That is the only way that you can connect with us directly as of right now. So if you want to, please reach out to them, and I will make sure to encourage them to respond. I know they will. Don't worry about it. So, but with that being said, don't forget, this Thursday, we have the replay of tonight. And then we have the new sessions starting again next week. So next Monday, we're going to go back and we're going to show you how to use PIN. How do you find some deals? We're going to walk through that. So if you missed that, maybe you want to participate in a live engagement like this, then we would encourage you to join us next Tuesday. Last thing is this, and I haven't been asking this a lot, but I really want to. You were all so kind and you stayed. And I would be really curious if you would just take 1 second. What was your big takeaway from tonight? Just take a quick minute inside of that question and just say, hey, I loved this. This was great. I hated this. Whatever it was, whatever your biggest takeaway was, please share that with us. That lets us know that we're on the right page, where we're over the target and that we're really providing you with some value. Yeah, so I'm gonna let you all do that for a second. With that, I want to thank Jenny and Stephanie, and we're keeping Dana in our prayers, because I don't know what she's doing, but it better be good, because we need her here. Anyway, but I appreciate you ladies for joining me tonight. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, you know, how you use PIN, all the different ways that you're succeeding in real estate. And I know what I think my favorite part of it is before we connected through Connected Investors, we never even knew each other, and now we're like fast friends. So I really like that. I love this wonderful community. And if you want to be part of this community, please don't hesitate to reach out to Jenny, Stephanie, Dana, and myself. We would love to lock arms with you and help you move forward. So
Truly, we're looking at deals constantly. We are constantly looking at people's deals. We are connecting with people all across the board. Craig's bringing us deals. We're looking at them together, and everyone from the people that are a part of these shows, right, and that we're interacting with right now, we really are then connecting with you guys off platform. We are actually giving you insight on your deals, or partnering, or doing JVing, or coaching. So it's real. You know, we are real people, and we actually do connect in the community, and it's exciting. I feel like there's not a lot of platforms out there where you take it from a guru to actually being able to connect and have someone give you feedback on your deals and work something through with you. So that's neat, and it's cool to be a part of. We enjoy it just as much as I'm sure you guys probably do.
that's right. And I typed in the question, Dana's name. It's Eudania Burrell, Eudania Burrell. So Jenny, Stephanie, it's always an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad that we get to meet each Tuesday. I look forward to it. I'll see you all next Tuesday, and we'll see you all next Tuesday for sure. Don't miss the next session. Have a blessed rest of your night. Thank you all. Bye-bye now.
Bye, guys.
Bye.